Welcome to the WP-Tonic This Week in WordPress and SaaS podcast, where Jonathan Denwood interviews the leading experts in WordPress, e-learning, and online marketing to help WordPress professionals launch their own SaaS.
Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic This Week in WordPress and SaaS. Got a great interview. This is show 891. Got a returning guest. We got Ben from KadenceWP returning. We had a fabulous discussion. I think it was over a year ago. Time flies, doesn't it, Ben? It certainly does. So, Ben, would you like to give the new audience and listeners a quick 20, 30-second intro about yourself and what you do at KadenceWP?
Yeah, so I'm the founder and lead product lead for Kadence WP, which we create tools to help people build effective websites. We specifically focus on WordPress and the front end. How do we give you the tools to design and create the content that is going to make your site effective? So theme and blocks plugin is kind of our primary, our primary tools. And then we have like extensions beyond that into WooCommerce and into pop-ups and conversion optimization and things like that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We use it at WP-Tonic, been delighted with it, and I've been really looking forward to this interview with Ben. We're going to be going around about what was the kind of story around Kadence, how Ben started to develop it, what he sees as the challenges around Gutenberg and the opportunities. We've got a number of great questions. Should be a great show. But before we go into the meat and potatoes, we've got a couple of messages from our major sponsors. We'll be back in a few moments, folks.
Tired of hosting providers that can't handle high traffic loads? Conversio is here to help. Our platform can handle any amount of traffic, all without slowdown or crashing. With immediate Slack support, performance optimization, and a team that thrives on resolving technical challenges, your e-commerce business is in safe hands. Learn more about Conversio at conversio.com.
Are you looking for ways to make your content more engaging? Sensei LMS by Automatic is the original WordPress solution for creating and selling online courses. Sensei's new interactive blocks can be added to any WordPress page or post. For example, interactive videos let you pause videos and display quizzes, lead generation forms, surveys, and more. For a 20% off discount for the tribe, just use the code WP-Tonic, all one word, when checking out and give Sensei a try today.
We're coming back. I want to also point out, got a new sponsor for most of December. It's OnlySend. OnlySend is a SMS and text messaging plugin. They had a great following, or still do, with Shopify, but they saw the light, folks, and thought they would go into the Woo space. It's specifically aimed at WooCommerce, but you can use it on a learning management, membership, community-focused website. Looks a fab plugin. I'm struggling. That's not the Scotch either. It's too early for the Scotch. So I'm like a great leader. It's just fantastic. You can find more information about this plugin, plus the other major sponsors, plus a curated list of other great plugins and WordPress services by going over to wp-tonic.com/deals, wp-tonic.com/deals, and you'll find all the goodies there. What more could you ask for? Probably a lot more, but that's all you're going to get from that page, folks. Sorry to disappoint. I've made a lifetime disappointment. So, oh, Ben, at least I get a laugh from Ben. You know, something, I think they're not bad, are they? They're not bad jokes, but, something gets, I get no response from them at all, Ben. So, Ben, I don't know if we touched this in our last chat, but it was a while ago. I'm getting so old, my memory, I can't even remember what I said yesterday. So, what was what's the kind of founding story behind Kadence? Because I know you were totally independent and then you partnered with, Solid. Is the official's title now Solid?
Yes, Solid WP. And in fact, we have an umbrella company called Stellar WP, which is where Kadence and Solid and LearnDash and the events calendar and Iconic all are brands inside of that. And that is owned then by a hosting company, which is Liquid Web and Nexus hosting. So yeah, it's a fun dynamic, but Kadence started with just me. I was doing freelance. Many people get in this way. I was building websites for people, and the tools, or at least what I wanted to be able to do with the tools that were available, I couldn't do. And so I started to build out my own theme and some of my own plugins, and was using them on client sites and decided, hey, maybe I'll just release a version of this for free out into the wild and see what people think. And then, did that. It got really popular. That was a Virtue theme back in 2013. And in that theme's heyday, it was up to like 300,000 active installs. That was around 2015. So that kind of took off, and we made a pro version of it, started selling that, and before long, I was like, this is all I do now, because the support and the continual improvements on that product, and I was getting the sales, and it was like, this is what I should invest my time into, and it's a lot easier, or I shouldn't say easier, it's a lot different than doing freelance, but when you have significant growth, it's very exciting, and that was some very exciting years. I quickly started to build a team, and then, like everything, you get challenges. I hit year 3, hit a challenge, and we went from our peak sales, we cut our sales in half the next year. And then it was at that point that I created Kadence Blocks. Or I'm getting the timeline wrong here. Not year 3. At that point, I created Kadence Membership. I created a couple more themes and more products. We started to build back up. And then in 2020, created Kadence Blocks and launched that. And that really took the company to the next level. So then in 2021, ended up selling to Liquid Web, which, not like an acquisition where like I come and leave, but one where I come and get to be a part of driving this. I was at a place of like critical growth and trying to figure out how do you manage that. So getting some help and some people quickly, and that was huge. And now I help lead product in other areas of Stellar too. So I'm able to consult with the team at the events calendar to say, hey, how do we do this? How can we do this? And vice versa. I can go to some very smart developers.
Well, you got some great talent. You got the Give WP people, haven't you? Which
yes,
you got some really great people.
Yeah,
under Stellar, haven't you? Some of them are not. I know we don't know one another that well. We've only spoke a couple of times, but I get a great feeling from you. You're very talented, but you seem to be very grounded and humble, even though. And quite a few of the other Stellar people, I get the same impression. So was you kind of self-taught, or did you go to university in computer science, or are you totally self-taught, or was it a mixture?
I was self-taught on the coding side. So I like to think of myself as not just a dev, but a dev and product designer. And probably not masters in either. I know a lot of devs who are a whole lot smarter than me, and I know a lot of designers who are a lot smarter than me. But that being able to think about both, and so I went to the university for design and media arts, and understanding how do you sell things through design, and then the coding part was self-taught. Started when I was in high school. I just got really interested in learning code and you start with the basics of Microsoft front page and learning how to tweak things in CSS, and then
I'm gonna be. Hopefully, I don't embarrass you here. I kind of rate you with some of the top people, like Pippin Williamson and Jack from WP Fusion. I kind of place you in the top 10% of work.
Well, I appreciate that for sure. That's a compliment.
So I think you've been very humble about what your achievements really. He hasn't paid me for that either, folks. It's not seem to be a check to say that. That's my honest opinion. So where are we with Gutenberg? Because I want to be really supportive. It's been a strange project. It's very easy to criticize it in some ways, but on the others, it's driving almost 45% of the internet. It's had its 20th anniversary. A lot of people have made a good living from it, and it had the web page building experience had to be improved, otherwise it was going to die. But there's been a lot of that's why I've stuck with why I bought in, because we still offer Animator, but we were looking at, because we knew Gutenberg was the future, so we offer, with our hosting packages, we offer Kadence as well, and we let people choose, or they can use their own thing. But I didn't want to go fully native because of what we've seen with full website editing, so I knew about you, I had confidence in you, and I've been trying it on my own projects, and I've really loved the experience. There's a bit, I kind of either I'm using Animator, Beaver Builder, or Kadence, and kind of swapping around, but I've got it set in my mind now. And I just think you've done a fabulous job, but I'm really delighted that I chose Kadence, because how do you see where the Gutenberg native project is, and how are you going to position KadenceWP in what you're seeing? Maybe you can give an outline.
Yeah, that's a big question. So let's start with the Gutenberg project, and I would say it's come a very long way. And what we have now, if you think about it from a can I just start up WordPress? I mean, we're so used to pick your theme, pick your plugin, pick your page builder, all that kind of stuff. But if you think about from one side of you can get started now with a full site editing theme, 2024, and customize that in ways that you were never able to do previously with any core theme. And it is a lot more intuitive than any experience prior to Gutenberg for a brand new user who's not coming in with the baggage that we are of I've tried 10 different page builders and I know what I like and what, so in terms of that, and then just page speed, the improvements to using full site editing and just that basic setup to get your basic website going, which is what, the part of the growth we have to admit with WordPress is it is the free option out there. So you get a lot of entrepreneurs, you get a lot of people who are just starting up and they're trying to figure out, can I make a living doing this? Can I get something online? Can I get even just can I get my passions out there in the web and get feedback and get an audience? And for that, I feel like WordPress has really progressed in the right direction. We have a tool that is very usable, creates a fast, responsive website. I think where it gets tricky is then you have all of the people who built on WordPress over the years to make it more like that for their end users, and also to extend it to, the moon in terms of just being able to do anything you want to with this software. Is one of its huge superpowers is it was extremely extensible. And I think where we get a lot of the friction right now with the community, especially the existing community, is the way in which you extend it is changing. And it's not changing it was this way and now it's this way. it is changing like fast and slow. Like the changes come fast, which is annoying because like today, if you go and build for it, in 6 months, it won't work. But then at the same time, it's like, it's also like big changes that you have to like figure out, am I going to go all in on this new way of thinking, or am I going to support both? Am I going to go,
Yeah, that's why I like using Kadence, because I can leave those decisions to you and your team.
Yes.
You can be the interpreter of those decisions.
Yes.
Because I'm not having a back. I totally agree with you. I think the team that are running the Gutenberg project, the recent team, apart from some very public trips, about the debacle about the short code and a couple other things. But in general, I think where they've been taking the project, it seems a better direction in general.
Yeah.
But
and
I still
you can get into the nitty gritty of like, if hindsight is 20/20, and also like we can all have our own opinions on data structure. Like, did we do this data structure right? Did we do this transformation right? Should we have spent another 2 years developing Gutenberg and then released it and had a much bigger buy-in and a much more polished product? There's a lot of ways that you could criticize how it is, but inevitably we're here. And is there a path forward? And do I see a path forward? Absolutely. Like, I think, it's, you can critique a lot, and I could as well, but I do see a path forward of we can build on this. We can change the minds of our current customers to start thinking in new ways. And we can do it in a way that isn't like, okay, everyone has to remake their website. It's more of like gradual, into this, you can do that.
You touched about one of the major problems is that they've been putting in changes, and you built a site for a client, because there's different buckets of user base here, isn't there? There's the DIY, the business owner, which you touched upon. Then there's the freelancer, quasi-implementer, which Divi really understood that audience because the founder came from that semi-background, and he understood. And then you got the agency, and they're looking for something much more different than the DIY. And so you got all these different buckets, haven't you, looking for different things. So it's I've just lost the track of where I was taking it. There was a plan where I was going, actually, Ben, but I lost it. But would you agree about the buckets?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's like, it still is the power of WordPress, of like, it can serve the brand new person who's coming in and never built a website before. And it can serve the agencies who are building these, hundreds of thousands of dollar websites that are very complex and have crazy, extra data and all of that they're working with.
Before we touch upon that, because Kadence, from the more agency professional looking to build more complicated websites, Kadence has been criticised a bit. It doesn't offer the functionality, but I think you got some new announcements that will change that situation. But I think before we go there, I think the two factors that are reasonable criticism is that Gutenberg, to get where it is, even though you got to take into account all the technical and practical hurdles, does seem to have taken a very long time. And that time has allowed that vacuum, like any vacuum in WordPress, people see opportunities, and that vacuum was filled in with a number of website page building solutions. And that's great for them, and I wish them well. But the problem is it made the technical overhead for plugin professional or plugin producers in general increase, because they had to support different page building plugins. And the other decision, which is my personal stance, is the decision of using React and not using Vue. Was the wrong decision, because I just love Vue. I still dabble a bit, and I did, and I always just preferred Vue, the way it works. But that's a taste. That's the individual thing, isn't it? In some ways, I do understand the decision to go to React. So I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's just my personal. So first, would you agree that it's just the time it took and that had consequences? And what's your view about the choice of choosing React?
The time, I would say, definitely had consequences, especially how long it's taken us to get through this stage. I don't think anyone thought that we would be, 4 years into like Gutenberg adoption and still have so many users using and choosing to use the classic editor.
Yeah.
So many users are not going to full site editing, and I can lay out why. I mean, that to me is obvious. Full site editing is just not there yet, but there's a lot of people who are not going there. And so what it does is it creates a lot of confusion in the system and a lot of weird, it is, I can tell you from our side, it's weird to support full site editing and for the people that are using it, and then not for the people that aren't. The way that the page loads different, the way that the whole editor experience is different. And so that creates a lot of technical hurdle, like you said, of like developers trying to create a system that's like, this is how it's going to be used, except for like, but maybe it's going to be used like this, and maybe it's going to be used like this. Getting all of that in this long of a transition, it's long, and there's consequences for it. And I think we're even seeing a general, stalling out of market share of WordPress. And I don't know that I would point directly to Gutenberg as being the sole problem, but I think it's part of the problem.
Yeah, so I would agree with you there.
Is part of the problem. As for like using React or Vue, I don't have a strong opinion on that front. I learned React first, and so then it's like, it's what it comes down to. What did you learn first? Or, I don't have like a real strong feeling, and that's where we could go back and say like, we could criticize a lot of those early decisions that were made, and I think that there's some like, it would be really good for there to be some open discussion about like, yeah, we made some of these decisions incorrectly in a closed room, not really opening up for more audience. And at the same time, I get the struggle of like, you bring too many people into decisions and you don't get anywhere.
Well, it's like anything to do with leadership. It's a balance, isn't it? I think having a committee, it's like having a guidance committee, but then a kind of CEO has to be elected, one individual for a 4 or 5 year period, and they should have the authority unless they do something financially or around the sexual area that will bring discredit to the organisation. Or financial shenanigans. They should be left alone to run things with guidance from the committee, with those parameters that they can't jump in unless something that's already been written out, so everybody knows where they stand to a certain degree. But yeah, you're right, got to avoid what's happened to other similar open source projects where you have things run by committee, which normally ends up in disaster, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
People just lose. They rather die somewhere else than face in another committee meeting. They rather take a gun and finish themselves off. So, what are a couple of things that you wish you have learned in the process of building out KadenceWP? Because you and your team, first of all, what is this? No, I know it's a mixture of full-time contractors and that, but in a rough ball, what is the size of the Kadence team? Do you mind sharing?
It's right around 20 people right now.
Right.
A little like 18. And that's, you've got the largest part of that is support. We handle a lot of support, especially when anyone who's been in the theme business or even any page builder, when you're the primary thing, you get the support of all the external extras. We get the support of like, hey, this obscure plugin is causing this error. We get that support. And so we have a big support team to kind of handle all of that. But yeah.
So what's a couple of things well, before we go there, obviously some of your major competitors in the Gutenberg block, I don't know if you see Cadence. I see KadenceWP as the modern version of Genesis, really.
I take that as a compliment.
Yeah, because they're a great team. Obviously,
yep.
Some of their key. Brian's gone with WP Engine, and Jason's a personal friend of mine. And
cool.
They're just a great team. All the people at WP, they're quality people because Jason's a top individual. I see the same. The two Brians, they were both really quality people, and I see I see that in you and what you're trying to do at Kadence. So I do see you as the modern version of Studio Press and but I never got into that really, Ben. I was always reluctant. I never really got into the Studio Press kind of scene.
I didn't, but I have a lot of friends that did, and I really admired the community that they created, and the sense of community that was there was extremely powerful.
Yeah. So what are a couple of things you on this journey to build up KadenceWP that you wish you knew you understood a bit, or something? Are there a couple of things that you've learned through that if you were advising somebody, you would tell them?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, there's a lot. I would say, I've made a ton of mistakes, and I've learned a lot, and that's led to some successes. And I think, if you're just starting out, one of the things that everyone assumes is that the best product will win the day. And that is not true. The best marketed product will win the day. And that I think it is crucial that anyone looking to start something, go and learn marketing. You might you're going to need marketing help as you grow and all that stuff, but like there's a mindset shift that comes when you truly understand some of the basic principles of marketing and how to market that will integrate into your product, and it will take your product to a much more usable and marketable and successful product. And I see a lot of people who have great ideas, they have good execution, write good code, even good design, but they don't understand marketing and how marketing is such a key part of telling the story of your product and allowing your customers to buy into that story and use it. And I think that's like I would go and read StoryBrand, and I would go and read Seth Godin and get yourself, teach yourself marketing, even as a developer of a product, because I think that you need to understand the story behind what you're trying to accomplish in your product and get that story to consumers for it to be successful.
That's great. That's really, I think that's very insightful. So, kind of moved on, but we should also cover this before we go for our mid-break. Is what I mentioned. There's been some criticism. I won't say criticism. That's probably not the right word. That's probably the wrong word. But I can't think of the right word. Something.
It can be criticism. I mean, we get lots of criticism.
Well, I think it's clearly aimed, but it's criticised. People say, well, we're going to. I'm not going to name. We're going to utilize this plugin, this page builder, or that page builder, and Kadence just can't do that intense query work that we're looking for. But I think you've got some announcements around that, haven't you?
Yeah. So we just, in the last 2 weeks, released our advanced query loop block. And it's by far our most complicated, from a technical standpoint, block that we've ever created, in terms of it uses a custom post type built on another custom post type to actually render out. So we have a custom database that runs all the indexing for it. And in short, it allows you to query posts of any type, and you can query multiple types on your website, and then show those in any way you want to. You can design the card templates however you want to. And then you can apply filters that will live render on the front end, so you can sort by, category, or change the order, or do all of that pagination and search, all within one kind of container block that has a bunch of these kind of sub blocks in it, like filter blocks and pagination blocks and search blocks, and all of that happens. And then we use Ajax and the REST endpoint, the REST API, to bring you live results, or very, very quick results, to those filters. So if you've got a ton of products and you want to see a certain category, you can click the category, and without having to reload the page, we'll bring up those posts from your database. And we've indexed all of that filtering so that it's a very quick query to the database. You're not doing these really exhaustive queries to bring that content up. So it's a very powerful block for doing things with any kind of query and filter on your website, where you're like, I need to be able to change the order that I'm seeing the stuff in, and I need to be able to, have 3 different filters, where I'm filtering by brand, and I'm filtering by category, and I'm filtering by some other attribute. You can now do that inside of Kadence blocks with using our advanced query block, which is really exciting. And that's been a big thing. The other thing that came with that is support for repeater field content. So using ACF, if you've got repeater fields, you can now basically source your repeater field block with a repeater field internal meta field, and then subsource out whatever. So you can template out exactly how you want that metadata to look, and then it'll repeat for as many repeater fields as you have. So there's some really cool stuff in terms of that's much more advanced.
It's really aimed at the higher freelancer agency. So you seemed, because you really seem to understand the DIY, the themes you provided, the framework. You really seemed, and we're offering Kadence child themes. We built out about a small library of 15 child themes.
Awesome.
That we offer at our particular market, which is membership. LearnDash, they're a major partner with us. So we developed about 15 child themes, and you helped us a little bit with a technical issue, which we're much appreciative, Ben. But it's just a fabulous framework. That's why I said I see it, you're taking the kind of historical place of StudioPress. I think we go to a break, and when we come back, the question I'm going to start off with the second half of the show is how, in your judgment call, because some of your competitors have taken full site editing Gutenberg to heart, but you seem to be waiting. And I wanted to investigate what your position around this is. We're going to go for our break, folks. I think it's been a fabulous chat so far. It's always great talking to Ben. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Lifter LMS, the leading learning management system solution for WordPress. If you or your client are creating any kind of online course, training-based membership website, or any type of e-learning project, Lifter LMS is the most secure, stable, well-supported solution on the market. Go to lifterlms.com and save 20% at checkout with coupon code podcast20. That's podcast20. Enjoy the rest of your show.
We're coming back, folks. I just want to point out we've got another temporary With us for the month of December, we've got Cloudways with us, and they're doing a special offer. You get 40% off for 4 months. You can find all the details by going over to WP-Tonic.com/deals, and you find the coupon code on that page for the Cloudways offer. We really appreciate them being a sponsor this month for the WP Tonic show, which is independent media, and it does really help cover the costs of producing the show. Right, so like I say, some of your competitors, I don't know where the Divi is, because I think they're still in transition. Obviously, they've made it totally public that they're going to Gutenberg and offer a block solution similar the business model in some ways similar to your own journey. Then you got a couple other that major block competitor, Gutenberg, in the block area, but they've decided to embrace full website editing. Which I understand, but I don't really agree with. I actually agree with your position, because I sense that you're just watching. What are some of the key things you're watching before? Do you think at some stage that Kadence will embrace full site editing? And if that's the case, what are some of the triggers that would make you and your team decide it's time to embrace it?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one we get a lot. And I think where I stand is, if you want to build in full site editing because there's something about it that you really like, go for it. 2024 is a great theme. You can use Kadence blocks and build in that, and that's awesome, and more power to you. I would say that for the majority of people, they have not tried full site editing, and then they come to us and they say, why don't you support full site editing? And I say, well, have you tried it? And to which they say generally no. And I said, well, please go and try it and come back to me and tell me what you liked and what you didn't like about it. And the general feedback I'm getting, and the reason why we're reluctant and waiting, and I wouldn't say waiting, we're planning, is that full site editing is nice if I want a brochure website. But if I'm doing anything more complex than that, if I want any kind of complex navigation, complex header, any kind of different layout from my desktop header to my mobile header, all of a sudden that becomes a real challenge in Gutenberg. And just being able to say, like, I want my logo in the center and logo on the left on mobile, you get some weird stuff going on where you're like, I want the nav here, but I want it over here on desktop. And that can be what is holding people back. And so what we're targeting is to say, there's not a whole lot of benefits to using full site editing. You can make an argument, and I would say it's a pretty weak one, but you can do it. You can make an argument that it's a little bit faster. You can make an argument that it's a little bit easier for a new user to use. I can kind of buy into that. It's a little bit weird to be like, I need to edit my header and the customizer and my content in the page. So I get that. Like, there's that flow is weird, and it would, with the site editor and full site editing, you don't have like two different areas of design. But it's not easier if you're not familiar with just even understanding how templates would work. That's where it gets people really lost, when they can't just go and click a button to say, I want a sidebar on this page. That all of a sudden becomes a very complicated thing to pull off if you're not very familiar with templating and with understanding how to use some of the tools. So there are some benefits, and then there are some big drawbacks. And especially when you get into doing dynamic stuff where you're triggering certain sections of content on certain pages at certain places, all of that starts to get a little bit weirder with full site editing. So we're targeting it as, we're going to work through the navigation and header piece and build that out. That's currently a project we're working on internally to say, we're going to create the best dang header navigation block experience we can. And that's going to be a bit of a mix. I mean, one thing that I've been pushing for and that is important to me in terms of the way that we're building with full site editing is that there is two different modes that people are in when they're building a website. One is more of a data entry kind of mode, like, hey, I have this data that I need to get on this website, and they're not thinking about design. And the other one is like, I need this data to look pretty. And there's a lot of times where that can be merged, and a lot of times where it's actually way better if that's separate. If you're thinking about entering in a list of like, this is how my navigation is going to be versus designing my navigation. And so we're going to build kind of interfaces for like, how do you do data entry on this and how do you do design on this? And that's the key, I think, like big key right now. The other one is like WooCommerce. So much of our customer base, so much of the like customer base they're using other plugins as well. They're using WooCommerce, they're using LearnDash, they're using other tools, and those tools aren't yet there yet. They're not ready yet for full site editing because there's no rush to this. There's no reason to dive in right now. You're not building something that's not going to work in 5 years if you're building it in a classic theme, because we know classic themes are going to be around for a long time, and that this transition into Gutenberg is going to take a long time to get into full site editing. I think eventually Molenweg, it will get us all there. His push and his drive is going to push WordPress into the majority of people using full site editing themes. I don't think that will be the entirety of people using WordPress. There will be a lot of people using WordPress that don't use full site editing themes. And I see that for as long as people use WordPress. And so we're approaching it of like, we're always going to support how you built it. I still push up updates to the Virtue theme that was created 10 years ago. I make sure that theme works on people's websites. If their site, like if you have a site right now and you have the Virtue theme, it still is going to work. So we're not going to abandon anything or make it like, oh, you have to do something. But coming up here and now,
but do you think that's realistic, really? Because I think there's, you don't want to end up like Jabot, a couple of other well-known open source CRMs. They had major updates cut off, but too many too often, and that destroyed the confidence in. I wasn't that bothered because I'm biased. I don't think either of them were as good as WordPress. They were good. They were good in certain aspects, but they didn't. The people that pushed them didn't understand the totality of the platform. But on the other hand, don't you think that sometimes there needs to be, as you give the people a lot of notice, there needs to be, because technology does move on, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would say this, that we don't promote the Virtue theme on our website. No one should be building with the Virtue theme today, right? That technology does move forward, but I don't think that, like, we could have gotten to a place where Molenweg said, okay, from Gutenberg forward, that is going to break backward compatibility. But we didn't go there. And we took on the weird data structure that we have right now, where all of your content gets saved as HTML in the post content field. I don't see a scenario where we have to cross some bridge at this point that says, this is going to break everyone's site unless they update to a new system.
Yeah, that would be a difficult thing to handle, wouldn't it?
So, I'm not building any features for Virtue. I'm just making sure that it's got PHP compatibility and then it still works. And I think that that's the key of, like, I don't think people need to have fear today of being like, if I don't build with full site editing today, will my site still be good in 5 years? I think absolutely. I think there will be a lot of people using classic themes, the customizer, the whole experience. But do I think in 5 years that if you built a new site, you would be using a classic theme? Probably not. And I think that's the difference.
Well, hopefully I'll be using Cadence, and just the start of the.
I'm planning on that. That's what we're building toward, is that you would be using Cadence, and eventually Cadence will have the options to say, hey, do you want to start full site editing?
Yeah, I'm not going to do it next year, but the year after. The WP-Tonic site is a very large website, and it's a mixture of different bits, but it's a massive, because I produce a lot of content, and it's got a lot of pages, a lot of posts. But maybe the end of next year, going to move it into Cadence, because the amazing job that you and your team, you seem fanatical about speed.
Yes,
I'm busy.
Gotta be performant. Yeah,
I mean, because trying to, there's a lot of independent evidence out there that Cadence and you and your team have done a fabulous job on there. I can only imagine the amount of energy you've had to put in to keep those speeds up.
And even in the last year, like some of our biggest updates over the last year were improving front-end performance with the way that our JavaScript was written, and updating and refactoring. And I think that that's a key part of just where the web is going and where Cadence will continue to stay.
It's bonkers, really, isn't it? This whole field is a bit bonkers, isn't it? Because people's expectations and their wants around the different things that they want to do with their website presence, and then they want speed as well, don't they? But their requirements are ever expanding, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, people want autoplay video, 10 different autoplay videos on their homepage, and they want that to be loading in, half a second. And that's, those are challenges, and they're not impossible challenges. They're just challenges.
So when it comes to Cadence, in the next 12 months, 18 months, where would you like Cadence WP to be? What would you think? What would you see as a good place for it, where you would be? Now, you always got to be pushing it, but you're in the next 12 months, 18 months. I think that's a reasonable. Any further out, that's just impossible.
I couldn't tell you. Yeah, exactly.
So any thoughts like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think so. One thing that we're it's very short term. We've got some goals, some things. We just released a pre-release of Cadence blocks with AI. So you'll be able to generate sections that have AI content and more unique to you images and things like that. As we go forward, AI generated starter templates is like part of what we're going to try to really land into the field. And then along with all of that, you talked about like you guys have a child theme builders. We're going to be re-looking at, okay, let's make these leaps. We've got some new leaps here with AI. Now, how do we get this stuff to the people who are building more niche? Because we need to keep creating the data and the software to allow all of these niche people. So we've got the feminist blogging sites that are building out beautiful feminist blogging themes. Let's get them the tools they need to build and to speak to that audience. And so that's kind of the thing for me is I want to figure out how we take the innovation jump that we're about to go through with AI into Cadence, and then how do we get these tools to our this audience, this marketplace that's using Cadence to power these kind of niche solution-based stuff that is leads to great success for those people. And that's the thing that's really exciting me is like, how do we make this onboarding experience better for users? And then how do we allow all these people that are very smart in their specific areas the tools they need to?
Well, I think you're spot on, because I think a lot of people get fixated with Squarespace and Wix. But the truth is that every niche sector, every industry sector has a group of SaaS-based competitors to WordPress that any industry at WP-Tonic, membership, learning management systems, Buddy Boss. That's what we do. That's what we talk about. That I have another podcast around membership. That's really grown a lot. I started it over a year ago, and it's grown a lot. I'm getting a lot of good feedback about it. But we have our main competitors are SaaS based. They're endless, But I say that there is only like three of them that are any good compared to WordPress. That's Kajabi, Podio, and there's maybe Mighty Networks. Circle kind of it bolts on to WordPress. That's what's their focus was. But but there's an army of them. But the truth is, there's only about three or four that I would, if somebody totally says, I just don't want to touch WordPress. You've got to respect the decision. Because digital ownership, sovereignty is really important for me, and I just don't think it's a great idea to build your whole online business on somebody else's property. You want as much digital sovereignty as you can get.
Absolutely.
So that's why, in business terms, I think it's still a great idea. So that's my little bit. But so I totally agree with you there. So what are some of the tools, services that you utilize daily, weekly, monthly? That, some SaaS products, some WordPress stuff, whatever comes in your mind that, because that's the other thing there. I think the great position of WordPress I see key plugins as key Lego blocks. I got this metaphor from Spencer Forum, but and I think he was right there. I think we're running out. When you come back next time, I've got some extra questions about how you can keep WordPress competitive, allow new life into the WordPress bigger ecosystem, but how you can improve that people have a mixture of independent plugins and don't end up with a Frankenstein that doesn't really benefit anybody. Yeah, that's a tricky one. I don't think anybody's come up with a good answer, really.
No.
But I think one of the way you do it is you look for quality providers, or you look for a company like WP-Tonic or anybody out there that can provide guidance. These are reputable built-in plugins should be in your stack. And I think one of the great things that's happened lately is, like, we're great fans of Fluent CRM and the Fluent team. And they brought out a great calendar booking plugin because it was really needed. And they brought that, and we're great fans of the Fluent form plugin, the free and the pro. It's just a great stack. And combining that with Kadence as well, with something like WP Fusion, from Jack. He's a great developer and entrepreneur in the WordPress space. Yep. He doesn't pay me, folks, for that either. So. You see where I'm coming from. Can you see?
Yeah, no, and I use Fluent support on a site as well. It's great to have a shared inbox where you're not having to do that.
Well, we're using a SaaS service at the present moment, but we're going to move to Fluent support.
Nice.
Because I was using it for historic reason. I'm just lazy, folks. I've got so much to deal with. And I had to pay I was using the free service, and and to have one custom field next year if I let it renew, it's going to cost me over $300. It doesn't seem a huge amount, folks, but all these SaaS 300s build up to a very large bill at the end of the year. So what are some of the things you just mentioned? Fluent support. What are some of the other things?
Fluent CRM. I think I've really use that on side projects and things like that. I love it. I would say Automate Woo, and this would be a little bit like WP Fusion. Automate Woo has been a product that I found a number of years ago, and it keeps delighting in terms of just making things really easy when I need to do custom automations using WordPress and WooCommerce. And I find myself needing to do that frequently. Because I'm a developer, it's pretty easy to be like, I want to create this custom functionality. But then to get to trigger that easily through Automate Woo, I found that's a tool I use a lot on a lot of websites. I'm trying to think of like the outside of your big, like I use WooCommerce. Just recently, I started using Verify Customer, which is a WooCommerce extension, and just verifies their email before they get access to their account.
Oh, right.
If they register on your registration page. And that's nice. It's a nice way to just safeguard your account page. And even if you've got stuff that you want to prevent someone from accessing without first creating an account.
Can I ask you this before the last question? I'm throwing this one. It wasn't in our list, but what do you think's going on with WooCommerce? Because I think it's linked to how long Gutenberg's taken, really, because I just feel that Woo's just leaving a lot of money on the table. They have it's, and the reason why is that it's not going to make me any money, but what benefits WordPress in general, I feel will benefit me in the end, karma. And I just feel that Automatic, because of the length of Gutenberg, WooCommerce hasn't moved on. I think they just said that you're going to utilize some of the blocks, but Shopify has just made a ton of money. And it was about 6-7 years ago that the last large Shopify project I got involved, and it was a nightmare. It was the idea, Shopify, like all these SaaS, it's fine if you're just going to stay with what they offer, but when you extend it, it gets really complicated. You think WordPress can get complicated. Yeah. And I lost a lot of my hair through that project.
Yeah, for sure.
It just seems that, where do you think WooCommerce is going? Would you agree what I'm hinting, that it seems to be a giant and it needs a lot more love and it needs to be pushed? And I think the reason why it hasn't is around Gutenberg to some extent. Or do you think I'm totally wrong here?
No, I think you're right. I think they haven't known how to move forward with Gutenberg. I think I don't know who made some of the decisions that were made, and I don't want to rip on anyone, but I've been very confused as a developer of why they created two separate template systems, two separate CSS structures, one for Gutenberg and one for Classic, when both are needed all the time.
Yeah. It
just means you're loading multiple things. Right now, they're using React to render out a basic reviews widget on the front end. There's some interesting and strange decisions in some of the way that they're going about their Gutenberg stuff. And I just think, like a lot of people, they've been having to wait as Gutenberg matured to be able to say, this is how we're going to tackle this problem. And I'm hopeful of the future. I know one of my colleagues just went and took a job at Automatic. So James Kemp, who used to run Iconic, he just took a job with WooCommerce to go and help them with that project. I think in particular, think about how they're working with third-party developers, how WooCommerce is working with third-party developers. But he's a wealth of knowledge, and I'm hopeful that leads to good changes of like the way that they created their block structure was so unfriendly to third-party developers. That it was just really weird. It was kind of strange. I mean, part of WooCommerce's strength has been this stability and this ability to extend it. And, they did a lot of work to do optimizing the database tables and things like that for orders. And that's all like great work. Their work on cart and checkout took a really, really long time, but like it's coming along. So you can see some things are moving. There's some good progress in certain areas, but it does miss the like where people have the hardest time with WooCommerce is in the product editing screen. It gets overwhelming. It's confusing. That should have been reactified and just a much smoother and better experience a long time ago. And hopefully they'll bring in the UX, talent to make that happen and make that product editing screen amazing. And
well, they've got a golden opportunity if it was done right to really hurt Shopify where it really hurts, haven't they?
Yep, they do.
I'm not the smartest tool in the toolbox. I've lost more money. I've made a lot of money in my life, but my problem has been keeping it. But I always, so I'm not the bluntest tool in the toolbox, so I'm not the sharpest either. But it just seems obvious that there's just enormous opportunities there.
Yeah,
if it's done in the right way for automatic, and it's a clear. They can have their WooCommerce and they can make tons of money and they can pay back all their investors and everybody's happy and they can still support the rest of us. And there's just a ton of money there, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think they've made some decent strides with WooPay, creating their own payment gateway essentially. And with Woo Express, they're definitely trying to like capture more of that lucrative audience. But there's some things that could be done to core to just take away that WooCommerce is hard. WooCommerce is messy. Shopify is so much easier. Well, in a lot of ways, it's not. It's just,
it really does need a fully you get the best of both worlds. You offer a fully hosted solution, but then you offer, but you have the ability, people can move to their self-hosted solution when they got requirements that necessitates that. It's a win-win, one of those rare things. It is a win-win for everybody. It's a win for...
Yep.
Right. Got a couple more minutes because you've got to be off coding he's got a very large... He's got to make a success of this. He's got a very large family of mouths to feed. Well, the sound of it keeps on growing. Got any animal, dogs, cats as well?
No, we've been able to say no to that right now. We have 4 young kids, but they do ask for dogs and cats, and we're like, no, not right now.
You look very relaxed for somebody that's got 4 small children. But that's all I'm going to say. You're right. So I come from England. I've been living here almost 20 years in the blessed. I am a joint citizen. I love America. I love Britain. People say, which one do you like the most? I say, they're just different. All right.
Yeah.
I've got an American friend that's just moved to London. That's been there 3 years. And he said, I love England, but the weather's awful. And I just grinned. And he said, I never knew the winters were so awful in London. He said, it's just, he said, it only lightens up around 11 a.m. and then it gets dark around 2:30. And that's right. He said, it's grey for about 5 months. I said, yeah, that's it. And that's why I don't want to go back. Not because I don't love the country, but I just can't stand it. So I'm into Doctor Who and the TARDIS. So if you had your own TARDIS and you could go back earlier, I gave you that year, what if you knew a couple of things. But if you could go back to the early start of your career, is there like one thing that if you could consult yourself, give a little tip, you would love to be able to tell yourself?
Man, it's so hard. I think,
I tell you, just go. I'll just tell myself, don't these negative messages that other people have told you, don't let it go and just go for it.
Yeah. That's super, super powerful. I think there's that. And I think there is, you can get stressed about the demands that customers are making on your product. You create something.
I don't know you do.
Thing.
Because I know, because I run this small hosting company, I know the crazy supporting, the craziness of a lot of people.
People. You got to be able to take it in stride, and I think you got to give yourself the slack of saying, like, it will be impossible for me to serve everyone as much as I want everyone to have a good experience.
I know you got your family, and are you still living in Montana?
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. He's God's country. I know it's cliche, but it's true, isn't it? Yeah. How do you how do you manage to totally switch off? Do you manage to totally switch off?
I would say my wife would tell you I do a pretty good job. I think part of it is the space I'm in. Like this, this is actually my neighbor's basement. I'm just like 3 houses away from my house. By leaving this, I can just leave it all when I walk out the door. And that helps a lot. I go home and I'm not having to take on all of that pressure. That's not always been the case. Certainly in the early days, that's been a learned thing. And there's no like arriving. You won't
this is the highlight of your career, Ben, ending up in a neighbour's basement.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's a daylight basement. I
love you. That was English humor, Ben. That was English humor. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a big part. Like you will not arrive in product. There will always be something else to build. There will always be a new demand and a new feature request or hey, your thing isn't as good. You'll always hear that. And so you just have to do what you can and do the best you can and make sure that you're being transparent with your customers about this is what I'm able to accomplish. And I think that's you just save so much of your mental space of like, I can remember many, many days early on just being very stressed out by the demands and being like, I have to get this out because people are wanting this. And you have to be able.
Well, you just got to, sometimes you do need to have to push yourself. It's just,
yes,
but
yeah.
It's just, but it's, you tend to listen at the beginning of your career to those that shout the loudest, don't they? And they tend to be the most unrealistic. So it takes a little bit of experience if somebody is generally needs something or they just tried it on. And it's a judgment call every time. So, Ben, what's the best way for people to find out what you're up to and some of your thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook group at Kadence. There's links on our website. It's just a really good community.
It is, I'm a member.
Yeah, we have almost 13,000 people in it, and it's very active, mostly with like Kadence. How do I do this in Kadence? And, things like that. But I would say that is a great way to like hear what's going on in our community. And then also like, I've been posting in there more, and I would intend to post in there more as we go forward with like videos of like, hey, here's what we're up to. But that's a great place. We post about, our podcast when we release them and things like that in there. So that's kind of like where you'll get stuff. But you can always go to our website and subscribe to our newsletter as well. We send out usually something on Thursdays of like, here's what's going on with Kadence, and you'll, anything that, a new YouTube video that I did or something, it'll all show up there.
Yeah, that's great. And folks, we record this on Thursdays around 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's up. The live show is always up there. And we'd love you to join and put some questions to our guests. That would be great. So remember that at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, join us. If you've got any questions, we've got some fab guests. Got a couple more weeks before I have my Christmas New Year break. I've got some great guests coming up, and we've got some great guests for January as well. Ben, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely.
I think we've covered a load of stuff. I've interrupted a little bit, but not too much. I could be a bugger for that. But I think we've really covered a lot of ground, actually, a ton of stuff in an hour. Hopefully you agree. I know you're busy, but hopefully you come back sometime in the new year. We can have another chat. That would be great, Ben.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'll always enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Ben. We will be back soon, folks. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. We really do appreciate it. Why not visit the Mastermind Facebook group? And also to keep up with the latest news, click wp-tonic.com/newsletter. We'll see you next time.